We have spent decades chasing after white gold, the rare and expensive lithium that fuels our smartphones and electric cars. But what if the next great leap in human progress does not come from a rare mineral, but from the salt of the earth itself? This is the moment the battery world began to tilt on its axis, as the giant known as CATL flipped the switch on a revolution. Before we dive into the deep mechanics of this power shift, I invite you to consider what energy independence truly means for you. If you find these insights valuable, please subscribe to the channel and join our community of forward thinkers. The announcement sent a shockwave through the global markets, a tremor that was felt from the skyscrapers of Shanghai to the lithium mines of South America. CATL, the undisputed king of battery manufacturing, has officially entered the era of mass-produced sodium-ion batteries for commercial vehicles. On paper, the specifications sound like something pulled from a science fiction novel written in the year 2050. We are talking about a battery that can endure 10,000 charging cycles, holds 175 watt-hours per kilogram, and remains reliable even at -40 degrees Celsius. It is a chemistry built from sodium, an element so abundant that it makes lithium look like a precious heirloom. However, this triumph lands in a global market that looks more like a battlefield than a playground. We are currently witnessing a collapsing market where dozens of sodium startups are filing for bankruptcy before they can even produce a single cell. Lithium prices, once sky-high, have plunged by 90%, making the established technology cheaper than ever before. This raises a fundamental question that keeps energy CEOs awake at night. Is this the greatest breakthrough of the decade, or a mistimed $300 billion gamble? To understand the answer, we have to look past the headlines and into the very architecture of the atoms involved. The brand new Tianxing Two sodium-ion battery, built on what they call the Tianxing architecture, marks the graduation of sodium from a laboratory curiosity to a serious contender in transport. For years, critics laughed at sodium, claiming it was too heavy and too weak to ever power a serious vehicle. But with a density of 175 watt-hours per kilogram, it is now standing toe-to-toe with the lithium iron phosphate packs that power millions of cars today. This is not just a marginal improvement. It is the moment the doors swung open for light trucks and urban delivery fleets to move away from oil forever. The real weapon in CATL's arsenal isn't actually energy density, but something much more practical for the everyday worker. It is the combination of extreme durability and what engineers call cold resilience, a trait that has long been the Achilles heel of electric vehicles. By using custom low-viscosity electrolytes and advanced thermal management systems, these batteries can retain nearly their full capacity in deep freeze conditions. Imagine a delivery driver in the middle of a Chicago winter, or a logistics fleet in Northern Europe, no longer fearing that their vehicle will die because the temperature dropped. This is the redefinition of winter operability, turning a seasonal weakness into a permanent strength. When we talk about the 10,000 cycle economic argument, we are talking about a fundamental shift in how businesses view their assets. For a commercial fleet that runs 300 days a year, 10,000 cycles translate into decades of continuous, reliable service. In the traditional lithium world, batteries are often the first thing to wear out, leading to massive depreciation and high replacement costs. With sodium, the battery might actually outlast the truck itself, turning a depreciating asset into a long-term investment. This longevity makes second life storage, where old vehicle batteries are used to power the electrical grid, a much more viable and profitable reality. CATL is not simply pitching a product with the lowest upfront cost, which is a common mistake many competitors make. Instead, they are selling a vision of the total cost of ownership across 2 or 3 decades of operation. It is a sophisticated financial model shift rather than a simple chemistry stunt designed to grab headlines. They are targeting the logistics companies that look at spreadsheets 5 years into the future, showing them that cheap lithium might actually be more expensive in the long run. This is the Machiavellian side of energy strategy, playing the long game, while everyone else is focused on the quarterly report. Yet we must confront the sodium paradox, which is the tension between elemental abundance and industrial scarcity. Sodium is everywhere, found in every ocean and salt flat on the planet, making it incredibly cheap to source as a raw material. However, the manufacturing scale required to turn that salt into a high-tech battery component is currently lacking. Hard carbon anodes and specialized electrolytes do not yet have the decades of manufacturing maturity that lithium-ion components enjoy. It is a classic chicken and egg problem. You need scale to lower costs, but you need low cost to achieve scale. Even if sodium costs less to pull from the ground, the global lithium factory network is a monster that has been optimized for over 30 years. These factories are so efficient that they can keep lithium prices brutally competitive, even when the raw materials are more expensive. CATL now faces the Herculean task of convincing vehicle manufacturers to redesign their entire vehicle platforms for sodium without a decisive price advantage today. In the world of high-stakes manufacturing, timing is often a more dangerous enemy than physics. If they are too early, they bleed cash. If they are too late, they lose the market. Beyond the chemistry and the spreadsheets, there is a much larger geopolitical play at work here. Developing a battery that is independent of cobalt and nickel is not just about saving money. It is about national security. For a country like China, which leads the world in battery production but lacks its own massive lithium reserves, sodium is an energy sovereignty move. It creates a future that is less exposed to international sanctions and has fewer choke points in the raw material supply chain. This is about ensuring that the wheels of industry keep turning, no matter what happens on the global political stage. The certification processes, the safety endurance tests, and the control of the entire ecosystem signal that CATL is positioning itself for a 30-year reign. They are not looking for short-term disruption that might fizzle out in a few years if lithium prices stay low. They are building a fortress of intellectual property and infrastructure that will make them indispensable regardless of which way the market swings. It is a controlled, weighty strategy that reflects a deep understanding of how power is actually maintained in the modern world. To understand why it took so long to get here, we have to look back at why sodium fell behind for over 30 years. In the early days of battery research, lithium and sodium actually started the race together as equal contenders. But physics is a harsh judge, and it clearly chose lithium as the favorite in the early 1980s. Lithium has a very small ionic radius and a low reduction potential, which allows it to pack a massive amount of energy into a tiny space. It was also perfectly compatible with graphite, which became the standard material for battery anodes for decades. Sodium, on the other hand, is larger and much heavier than its cousin lithium, which caused it to physically shatter early graphite structures during the charging process. For a long time, researchers simply could not find a house for the sodium ions to live in that wouldn't fall apart. It was only the recent maturation of hard carbon technology that finally unlocked the door to sodium's viability. Meanwhile, the explosion of consumer electronics in the late 1990s funneled billions of dollars of research into lithium, cementing its dominance. Sodium was left in the shadows, a forgotten relic of a race that many thought was already over. The revival we are seeing in the years 2025 and 2026 is not a sudden accident. It is the result of three separate forces converging at the exact same moment in history. First, material science finally broke through the density barrier, allowing sodium to cross the threshold of 160 watt-hours per kilogram. Second, the extreme volatility of lithium prices in the early 2020s scared manufacturers into looking for an alternative. Finally, the global rise of grid-scale storage created a massive demand for batteries where weight doesn't matter, but cost and lifespan do. Once sodium crossed that good enough threshold, it was no longer a laboratory experiment. It entered the real-world arena as a fighter. While sodium is currently fighting its battle on the grounds of cost and durability, another giant is waking up in the distance: the solid-state battery. Solid-state technology is often called the holy grail of energy because it aims to replace flammable liquid electrolytes with solid ceramics or polymers. If successful, this would unlock the use of lithium metal anodes, pushing theoretical energy densities to 500 or even 600 watt-hours per kilogram. Companies like Toyota, Samsung, and QuantumScape are pouring billions into solving the problems of dendrite suppression and rapid charging. They are chasing a future where range anxiety becomes a term found only in history books, and an electric car can travel 1,000 kilometers on a single charge. This creates a fascinating dynamic where sodium is attacking the low-end and mid-range markets, while solid-state is preparing to dominate the premium sectors. We are no longer looking at a single type of battery for everything, but a stratified ecosystem of energy. In this emerging layered energy future, there is no single winner-take-all race, despite what the media often suggests. Instead, we will see a landscape where different chemistries serve their optimal battlefields based on their inherent strengths. Sodium will likely become the backbone of cost-sensitive electric vehicles, city buses, and massive grid storage facilities. Lithium will remain the balanced choice for mainstream passenger cars that need a mix of range and performance. And solid-state will be the high-performance heart of luxury vehicles, long-haul aviation, and specialized military applications. CATL's move into sodium is a strategic bet on the next decade of human history, a bet that recognizes the fragility of our current supply chains. If lithium remains cheap and abundant, then sodium will wait in the wings as a disciplined backup. But if global supply tightens again, or if a geopolitical crisis cuts off the flow of white gold, sodium becomes the ultimate lifeline. This is not just a product launch. It is the positioning of a company and perhaps a nation for a future energy order that is still being written. As we look at these massive shifts in technology, there is a profound lesson we can take away for our own lives and careers. Success is rarely about having the absolute best specs or being the fastest in the short sprint. It is about resilience, adaptability, and the ability to find value in the abundant things that others have overlooked. Just as sodium was ignored for 30 years because it wasn't as efficient as lithium, we often overlook our own common strengths in pursuit of rare, precious talents. Sometimes the most common materials, when combined with the right architecture and patience, can outlast the most expensive alternatives. Thank you for spending this time with me today to explore the deep currents of the energy revolution. If you enjoyed this narrative journey, please remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Until next time.